Hey. Dan, I've just seen you come in the back of the room. Can you bring one of those canned waters over here, please? Thank you. Good morning. So we're moving on to our second panel of the day, and I'm going to act as a mediator here and host. I'm just going to get a water because I'm quite dry. Cheers, bro.
That was a real power move from Ben.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Calling the water from the back of the room.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, so I'm just going to give a little bit of context here and introduce our panellists. So, welcome to the Latch team. This is a sort of talk on fan building. Latch Media are a digital marketing, management, consulting, and music promotions company. So they do a whole lot. They work with artists internationally from all situations, all the way from major label clients to independent artists, growing careers and building fan bases for emerging and more established musicians. And the team wanted me to sort of start by just asking if there's any musicians in the room. So show of hands for musicians. Anyone play an instrument, including the voice? Nice. And who here's a manager or would like to work in the industry? Who's interested in booking agencies, management, PR? Emily is right at the back there. Okay, well, yes, so that's amazing. So hopefully these guys will be able to give you some advice over the next bit of time that you can put into action. Okay, I'm going to sort of turn these into questions because otherwise I'm just going to be talking forever.
I've been loving it.
Yeah. So, what sort of opportunities are there for independent artists, and how can you help them to sort of achieve their goals and their dreams? And I'm gonna ask that one by one.
Oh yeah, shall we do intros?
Oh yeah, that'd be way better.
Yeah, it's like a.
Yeah, so Alex is there. So I'll introduce. Alex is the director. Am I right in saying?
I found Latch, and I was a PR like 3 or 4 years ago, and then really stopped enjoying doing PR. So I brought Keely on board to do all of the PR. So now Keely's one of our senior PRs, and I do just more kind of general digital marketing strategy and some other stuff. I have some expertise, but really don't know that much. George.
My name's George. I'm the head of radio at Latch, so I represent all of our artists, UK radio, the BBC, Capital, Virgin, Kiss, everything. So if you want to get your tracks on the radio, it's my job to kind of go in and speak to the DJs, the presenters, the producers, and everyone to pitch the music and make sure it's getting heard in the right place, getting on the airwaves, really, which is good. I also run digital ads, so anyone wanting to put their music on social media, run ads across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, making sure that music is getting out to the right people and getting kind of seen and heard as much as possible, focusing on digital marketing strategy and that kind of stuff as well.
Cool, so as Alex said, I am a senior music PR at Latch, and I also have founded my own little eco festival called Forest Fest, which is run for 3 years now. So yeah, in terms of PR, if you don't know what kind of a PR does, my role is really about kind of helping tell your story as an artist and like introducing you into the rooms where perhaps you're unable to reach. So, and that can be in terms of online interviews, online single reviews. If you've got a release coming up, that can be introducing you to different journalists, different social media platforms, you know, like takeovers and things like that, YouTube channels, Spotify playlists, all that kind of stuff to really help promote your single and to get you heard.
I'm Céline, I'm marketing assistant, and my role is to, for example, organize today, well, not organize today, obviously that's all up to Ben, but you know, come here, speak to Ben, and see if we can obviously talk to you guys, just go around and ensure that our Latch voice is heard around the industry.
Amazing. Okay, so George has kindly given me some pointers and questions here, and it's in depth. It's lovely. So I think the first question was sort of just something you might have touched on, Alex, anyway. But it would be great if you could let us know a little bit about why you started Latch and what the company means to you.
Yeah, so I had left uni, and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she came downstairs and she was like, "Oh," she said, "I'm moving to LA, and you can either come with me or not come with me." So I decided to go with her. And when I got there, I wasn't allowed to go and get a job because I didn't have a visa or a green card. And I was producing and songwriting and running a couple of music blogs. This is like, I would have been 22, so this is 7, 8 years ago. And I had friends that wanted to get on online publications and stuff, so I'd help them out. And then that ended up becoming basically the main function of a PR at the time, moving from predominantly print press and other bits into trying to understand how to get access to what was at the time like a burgeoning online music critique scene. And so I just did that. I did that for 3 years. I worked with all kinds of different clients, mostly independent artists, people who were just starting out. Then moved back to London and just wanted to figure out a way for Latch to be a place that an artist can come, and it's like a one-stop shop. If you needed radio plugging, we had a plugger. If you needed digital ad help, we had someone there that could do that. We had PRs. We had graphic design resource to help you with your artworking and your creative direction. And yeah, that's where we are now.
It's a sort of holistic platform.
That was the idea, yeah, because usually, you know, an artist will have 5, 6, 7 different people on their team working on all these things. If, you know, you're going into full marketing mode for a release, you'll have a plugger, you'll have a PR, you'll have a manager, you'll have a label. That label might have a marketing manager. You know, you might have a digital ads person. You might have a designer, a tour manager, so many people involved. And it becomes really fractured really quickly, and it becomes really hard to direct the message in one direction and have everyone moving in the same direction. So I thought it would be nice if you could get that all through one email.
One little menu.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like a great service. The next question I'm going to direct to you, Keely. So it says the industry has traditionally, over the past 50 years, really been based on the same traditional marketing model. And that's sort of changing rapidly, I think, at the moment. So can you tell us a little about music, or in general, why you think it's super essential in a journey for an artist's career? I suppose that question's sort of, why is marketing so important? Why is innovative and unique marketing so important? And how does Latch provide that?
Cool. That's a big one. Well, I think in terms of marketing, like, God, we've all seen the huge rise of social media and TikTok, and how much these new platforms can really be super influential to like your campaigns, to your online presence in general. And I think as much as like the traditional kind of marketing strategies, there are elements of them that are dated, but I think there are ways in which you can kind of pick and choose and filter in bits that perhaps are a bit more relevant nowadays. So I think in terms of PR and what I do, there's still a lot of power in the written word and getting your name across, and just having your name attached to these certain platforms that are really big and really well known and still really established and really recognized within this industry. So I think in terms of that, that's still really powerful. Perhaps I'm thinking it's partnering that with all of the other different things that we have available. So like making sure that your social media is really strong, you know, utilizing the tools that you have available. Like with social media, it's great because it's free, so you can use that to your advantage, and really, really connecting and understanding your fan base, I think, is a huge thing going forward. Like with TikTok, with Instagram, you get a pinpoint into someone's life, a little viewpoint, a window that we didn't have access to before. And I think people love that. They want to connect. They want to get to know artists. They want to know what their day is like and all these little things. And it's just really utilizing those alongside traditional marketing techniques like PR, like radio plugging, and just using the online world for as much as possible. And I think, you want to say something about that?
I think, like, even with what we're doing, you know, when I started Latch, the only thing anyone was interested in was being at the top of the hype machine charts. and like everything that came with that, and like being really big on SoundCloud and finding fans that way. And that was only 6-7 years ago. And I mean, hands up who has a SoundCloud account. Yeah. So
That's not too bad.
That's not too bad. If we'd have done that like 10 years ago, it would have been everyone. And I think probably in 10 years' time, the same number of hands will rise for like who has a Spotify account or, maybe a TikTok account. So I think it's important to remember that ultimately marketing for a musician it's a long game. It feels like what you're doing is you're in the process of trying to make hit singles and trying to market big tracks. But actually what you guys who are musicians or artists are in the process of is building careers. And that's long-term planning. And it's important to remember that most of these kind of models built on single platforms or becoming really big on single platforms and not trying to disaggregate yourself from those and like build fans across multiple platforms is the way to become irrelevant pretty quickly, because all of these things fall by the wayside in the same way. No one uses Facebook anymore. No one, like in 5 years, probably like very few people will use Instagram anymore. And like you said, in like 10, 12, 14 years, maybe no one will use TikTok anymore. So it's important to think of all of these things as like tools in your tool belt. The same with PR and radio and digital marketing and whatever we do. And that ultimately it's up to you guys, because you need to figure out what kind of artist you want to be, or if you want to be a manager or a marketer, like what you're building towards for that artist in the long term, and not just thinking about this track is pretty good, I think maybe let's try and make this one a hit, because that almost never works.
It's super dynamic, isn't it? I think,
Yeah,
and
really
like you're saying,
dynamic.
platforms change, they become irrelevant quite quickly, and so I think you have to have a more, like what you guys are doing, like a multifaceted approach.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I assume like a lot of you guys have Spotify accounts, and how many of you are checking New Music Friday UK every Friday? I don't know, one. Yeah, exactly. It's just all people who have been in the music industry for a while. No normal music consumer is checking those playlists. That's the reality. And like when Spotify started, it was all about being in editorial playlists, and it's just not about that anymore. It's about building your release radar, your Discover Weekly, your algorithmic inclusion, your monthly listeners, and that's a completely different game.
It's a really great point. It's a good segue to move on to radio, I suppose, because I think we've actually seen probably a revival of the importance of being A, B, C listed on Radio 1 at the moment, and also outside of that, independent radio, things like Worldwide FM, Balami, NTS, and the impact that those sort of independent platforms have. So I'll bring you in here, George. What do you think is the importance of pitching to radio, old school radio pluggers, and how does that compare to Spotify and finding yourself on, a playlist with X amount of thousands or million followers?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'm a bit biased, but I do think radio is super important. I guess of all the musicians in the room, has anyone had radio play in here? Has anyone been on BBC Introducing, or has anyone got a BBC Introducing account? People are uploading to BBC Introducing. Nice, very smart, sensible thing to do. But yeah, radio's been around for a while, obviously, and is still just as important as ever, not just because listening figures are repeatedly going up and up and up. People are still listening to radio, but it's one of those things, one of those pillars in the music industry which, unlike things which come and go with the rising of the tides, really, it has stayed in importance. A spin on daytime Radio 1 is still just as important now as it was in 1980, whatever. And it's something that will not only reach hundreds of thousands of people, but is also known throughout the industry as like an incredible landmark. If you're going in for a meeting with anyone and you say, you got a Greg James spin, then that means something. That means you're an artist who's reached a certain level of success. So in order to get to that point, obviously that's, lots of work, but it's something which is super important. And as an independent artist, a lot of people think, oh, well, I can't afford a plugger. Like, plug is so expensive, I can't do it, I can't get on radio. Like, that's
Are you offering mates rates?
obviously, yeah. But that's basically not true. It's like a lot of people think, you know, you may be independent artists, and here we are talking about radio and PR and digital marketing services and all these people, and you know, unfortunately that's not available to a lot of people, but there is so many things which are available, especially due to the rising of technology and platforms like BBC Introducing, where basically you guys today can go out and get loads of radio spins, put your music on BBC Introducing, which before you know it, you can get a spin on your local station, then you can get a spin on Radio 1, and then you can get a spin on whatever. You can be introducing track of the week. If you get picked on that, basically a new artist, you can upload a track tomorrow, and if you wanted, you know, if it was good enough, got listened to by the right people, it can get introducing track of the week, which means you get a spin on every show on Radio 1 for a whole week, which is like mental. That gets your track listened to by millions of people and is like one of the biggest things. And when we go back to just talking about fan building, it's basically about connecting one thing to another, to another, to another, and building up a big picture. Basically everything anyone wants these days is to get huge numbers on Spotify, and that's hard to do organically, and that's hard to do without being a musician for 10 years. But if you can start to do the little things like upload your music to Amazing Radio, if you can get 10 spins on there, if you can get a BBC Introducing spin, if you can, you know, speak to someone who's on NTS or Bellamy or other small stations like Voices Radio, all these little ones which are bubbling up and making really exciting moves because they've got interesting people playing the music. If you can get these spins before you know it, you go into those conversations, or you upload your track via AWOL or anything, which anyone can do, and you say you've got this stuff, that's something that people are going to listen to, and before you know it, you're ticking the boxes which maybe some artist who has some huge team isn't doing because they're not putting the groundwork in at the right levels. Like, I always see promotion and radio as a whole as like this super, you know, quite lame imagery of building a house. Basically, you know, big label people, potentially they want to like throw the roof on straight away. Let's do it. Let's get daytime Radio 1, and you know, maybe that happens, but if it does, there's no saying it's going to happen again because you don't have anything below you. You've really got to put in foundations and sorry, this is such a bad metaphor, but
it's
like
a beautiful metaphor. I'm loving it. Build the foundations.
If you're doing all of it, if you're getting spins at lower level, local radio, then interesting online stations, and then BBC Introducing, and then national radio, you've suddenly built up this huge backing of supporters, and you know that with each single you're going to keep growing because you've got all of that behind you. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know where I started or where I'm going with this, but basically radio is great, and there's so much you can do as an independent artist, and the small wins you can get can transfer easily onto Spotify. The listening figures, if you're making sure that your social media is like right up everywhere, like if someone listens to your track and goes to your socials, and you've got interesting live sessions, you've got you doing little covers, you've got interesting news about like whatever you're doing, you're capturing new fans instantly there and then, and all you've had to do is upload your track to Amazing Radio, which takes 5 minutes.
It's also like worth remembering that, you know, the BBC, and that is our kind of like, I guess, our flagship music radio network in the UK. If you're in the BBC and you're in the BBC ecosystem, there's a whole host of other things that can come from that. And that comes from beginning with the plugging at a low level, like Introducing, and then through the national shows. And then, you know, one of our clients, Asha, she got booked to play the BBC Introducing stage at Glastonbury. And that was only because she'd been plugging to radio. And if she hadn't have been plugging to radio, then she wouldn't have got booked for the BBC Introducing stage at Glastonbury, and she wouldn't have played Glastonbury. So, like, those things are worth remembering as well. Like, all of that stuff that you're doing it's all happening at the same time. And plugging to radio isn't just plugging to radio. Doing digital PR isn't just doing digital PR, and hopefully you're keeping your eyes on the prize. But, like, yeah, I mean, I think there was a consensus maybe like 10 years ago that radio was in trouble because of Spotify. And I think maybe we're realizing that they're not the same thing, and they exist as different, like,
they're not mutually
listening
exclusive, are they?
experiences.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring Céline in here if that's all right, because I'm aware that we haven't heard from her yet. So I've got a little sort of prompt here as well. We're talking about sort of traditional methods of sort of marketing and reaching fan bases can often be quite expensive, and there's gatekeepers. But these days, fan building in general around a project can be essential. So can you fill us in on why, and away from traditional promotion, why building a fan base around you is so important?
Yes, so the elephant in the room that everyone knows about is that obviously there are just so many artists, so many tools available to everyone to become an artist, right? So now everyone has access to TikTok, everyone's looking to get viral, everyone can, well, a lot more people can make music from their homes, so there's a lot of more competition. So obviously you have to be creative and create your own narrative to stand out and really be unforgettable. And before I go into that, I also wanted to touch upon, you talked about gatekeeping. Mm-hmm. I went to music uni, and in the whole course, they never touched upon even the basic marketing things, such as PR. Like, I got out of uni, and I did not know what PR was. I got a PR job randomly, and I was like, what is this? I thought I knew all about it. I knew nothing. So even I can only speak for my experience at the uni I went to. There was a lot of gatekeeping. People just don't want to help you. It's a horrible just competition. And I think the only help you can get is from other independent artists. And obviously there are companies that want the best for you as well, but you always have to be sort of aware that a lot of people don't want to tell you their secrets. Or at least it's just harder to find the secrets, but they are there.
We'll tell you our secrets.
We'll tell you our secrets.
Only today.
We'll tell you our secrets. But no, as an independent artist, you might think that everything's there, but you have to look deeper. You have to research more, because these people are sort of gatekeeping and just hiding things, but they're there. And for me, the most important thing about fan building, if then obviously you're striving towards being signed, for example, by a major label or just getting a manager, is creating that relationship with your fans and give an identity to that relationship. So you obviously all have friends that maybe like you for a specific characteristic. You might have a friend that likes you because you make a lot of jokes, or because you have the same sense of humor as them, or because you give off like a very calming energy. So the relationship that's being established has an identity, and you can put a finger on that sort of energy without even giving a face to it. So what you're trying to do with your artistry is to create a specific type of relationship that's not just friendship or just being able to reach out to someone and them listening to you, giving them a reason for them to come back to you because they seek from you something specific that no one else can give them. You know, so like, why? This is just popped to mind like a stupid example. Why do you go to your mum to tell her something? Because there is no one else like your mother, because she has that specific role. Obviously, I don't want to. Don't be your mother. Don't be a mother to your fans. Anyway.
It's a very unique relationship, isn't it? And it's trying to sort of create, and you feel very secure, and you feel like you trust that person as well. So it's about creating that real tight bond that also. It needs to stand out, and it needs to be sort of unique, and it needs to be impactful as well. So it's that combination of I feel really comfortable with this person, I think I know them, and then also wow, this content is leaping out, and like they're doing some amazing. At the end of the day, the product's got to be great, the music's got to be great as well.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, go on, Ben.
I was just going to say that there's one final point here before we sort of leap into some questions. I think it actually will open up to all of you, but the notion of like running a PR campaign for an artist. I hear it said a lot, and it's probably taught at the college as well next door. You need to run a really impactful and strong PR campaign, and I think all of you probably help to achieve that. But I wondered if you could sort of break down that workflow a little bit. What does it really mean to deliver an amazing PR campaign?
I think So the first thing, like I think Céline briefly touched on it just there. I think now we're almost at 100,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day, right? That's insane. I mean, like 90% of them are probably rubbish, and there's a lot of stuff that's getting uploaded to Spotify, which is just mood music and 10 seconds of piano or whatever. But that's a lot of competition. That's a lot of competition for ears, and it again, Céline said it. It's all about creating like stickiness. Like, why are people going to come back again and again and again to listen to you, to interact with you? What's unique about your project? What are you giving them that the next artist isn't giving them? And only you'll know that. Only you'll know that based on the interaction you have with the people that listen to your music. We can like do our best at doing our jobs for you, but it's going to be your career. And people like us, like we might dip in, and you might be able to have us working on singles at some points and not at others. And you might change PRs, or you might, be in a different place in your career where all that's handled in-house at a major or whatever, I don't know. But really, the primary driver of whether an artist is successful over a long period is how willing the artist is to invest their time and their patience in that project. Like I said, we can do our best job, but unless you're connecting with your fans, unless you're like, playing shows if you want to play shows, or like, I don't know, like live streaming or however you're connecting, unless you're doing that and you're understanding what your relationship is to those fans, what we do doesn't I'm going to sell us short. What we do doesn't make that much of a difference, basically. Like, we work on hundreds of campaigns, and the ones that work are the ones where the artist understands who they're trying to be, what kind of artist they're trying to be, and the work that they're going to put in to that thing. And unless you understand that, I would say, like, don't give us your money. Or like, don't give a PR your money or a plugger your money unless you're going to be willing to keep doing that thing again and 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 again. You're going to release, like, if you're a career musician, artist, you're going to release, like, I don't know, 10 tracks a year, an album a year, even if it's less, 5. So in 10 years, you're releasing 40, 50 tracks. Not every one of them is going to be a hit. Not every one of them is going to require our services. And you won't feel good about every release, but hopefully at the end of any given like campaign period of like a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you'll be happy with where you've got to over that period. And that's really important. Like, where are you trying to go? Do you want to be selling out shows and playing shows every year, going on tour every year? Do you want to be a producer who just like live streams making beats and like makes money that way? Do you want to be primarily a songwriter? All of these things require different marketing strategies, and that's the first thing. Like, figure out what you want to do, what kind of artist you want to be, and then maybe find a manager or come and find a marketing manager and say, I was just wondering how you guys think you can help me get there. Yeah. Because otherwise we have no idea what we're doing. Like, we can all do our jobs. Like, George can get you on Radio 1, Keely can get you in like Notion or Wonderland, and we can run loads of paid ads, and we can do everything well. You can get in editorial, and what happens next time when you release your next single, and is that all going to have been worth it, or are you in the place that you were 8 weeks ago before you started that single?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point that there is maybe a point where bringing you guys on board makes sense, and there's a lot of sort of DIY PR and work that can be done to begin with that is formative. It's the same with a musician or a songwriter. You try out different outfits, try out different sounds, and begin to find, or that sort of identity begins to coagulate. There's a better word than that, but I'm going to use that word. So just sort of touching on then the work that you guys do and just bringing it back to that, is there an example of an artist or, you know, someone that you've worked with that you're like really proud of and you think the format that you used was really impactful?
I, like 9 times out of 10, we'll use roughly the same, we'll do the same job, or we'll put the same 100% in for any client. I'd much rather take a major label's money because it doesn't mean anything. Like, they're just going to pay you it, and if they lose the money, they lose the money. If they spend the money, they spend the money. They're making billions of pounds a year. Like,
do you feel there's less oversight then, and you have more freedom? Like, you know, that check's coming in, so they're not.
Yeah, so it's more that I feel more personal angst about doing a really, really good job for an independent client because I know what that money means and where it's come from. Like, if you come to us and you're spending hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds over a campaign, that's money that you've worked for and you're spending, and you could be spending on other things like eating and, you know, like important things, but you're spending it with us because you hope that we can help you. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, so much of it is understanding if you can come to us and you know what a PR campaign is, what radio plugging is, how digital ads work, and what that means for your release, it means that you come in to that meeting with your expectations in the right place. You can't pay us money and we give you a hit song, because that's not how it works. But you can pay us money and we'll work 100% at doing what we do and doing it well. And then hopefully you guys are working 100% at doing what you do and doing it really well. Like, we can't connect with your audience for you. We can't connect with your fans for you. We can put it in front of eyes and ears and help you come up with a narrative and maintain that narrative through the release. We can give you amazing visuals. We can create like really good paid ads. Keely can do an amazing job. George can do an amazing job. Céline can do an amazing job. But ultimately, it's going to be... What was your question?
Do you know what? I
have no idea where I just went.
I'd forgotten what my question was, but I'm thinking of maybe just tying it back in with all of you guys and saying it. So obviously we've got a lot of independent artists out there. I don't think anyone's signed to a major at the moment. If you are, you've stayed very quiet. So for people, you know, in the audience and young musicians, young managers, young professionals at this level, with limited budgets, what's the most important or impactful thing they can do using radio, using social media? You know, I mean, from a festival perspective, one of the things that we find being integrated into this community, organically posting, and by that I mean like sharing it on WhatsApp groups and going, can you please share that for me? You know, that has such a huge impact. And because Wild Paths is so tied to Norwich, and we've, you know, managed to, a lot of the stages are sponsored and a lot of those businesses are local businesses, that just emanates outwards, and it's free, and it's you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You know, is that the sort of stuff at this level that these guys can be doing? You were saying about uploading to BBC Intro, it's free, that's super important. Yeah, from each one of you, what's the most important thing at a very early stage that these guys can be doing?
So I guess, I mean, literally just touching on exactly what you said, we work with an artist who is like, I've never known anyone with so many friends. It's bizarre.
Make friends.
They're like the most friendly person ever, but they are not super comfortable at posting on social media, and that's fine. You know, social media is super important to an artist campaign, but if it's not something you're comfortable at, people are going to tell. You know, then you know, you can't just put some video on and everyone be like, "Wow, it's amazing." They'll be like, "Your heart's not really in it. I don't like it." But what you do, you know, if you've got a big group of friends, that's like, if you've got like 100 people in a WhatsApp group or like 50 people or whatever, just ask them to follow you on Spotify. It takes people like 5 minutes. And basically, if you don't know, if you get someone to follow you on Spotify, that's one playlist for you. You go immediately into their release radar when you put your track out. And that's amazing. And that's 50 playlists you're in if you get people to do it. If you do it with, you know, 5 people in your family, that's 5 playlists you're in. And, you know, it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you do that, and if you ask everyone at your work, and if you ask all the people in your class at college, if you ask your cousins, whatever, like before you know it, you can easily get up to like 60 new people following you on Spotify. And that algorithmically is nuts. Like, we've had some artists put tracks out and you can do a big, release campaign and whatever, and you can only get like 100, 150 new followers. But before you know it, you've just asked like your mum and her like, baking club or whatever, and like you've got the exact same thing. And it's kind of about putting that pride to the side a bit. It's like, this is what you want to do. This is your dream. So, flip and work for it. Like, if you're not willing to just ask people to follow you, then this isn't the thing for you. It's like, just do it. Like, put your pride to the side and ask, because you can get so much from that. And before you know it, if you get like 1,000 streams in your first weekend after putting a song out, like, that's great. Update your distribution, and that's, putting you further towards more editorial support or more radio when you're pitching or something. People see this stuff, and that's super essential and something you can do. I mean, back to radio, which is, the real expertise, which is essentially what I said. Like, so many stations you can just get played on by just putting your track out there. Put it on BBC Introducing. It's like best tool that no other country has, that you guys have at your fingertips. Like we said with this artist, Asher Gold, we put a track out and immediately she got picked up off it. She got a gig at the BBC Radio Theatre in London. She got played at Glastonbury on BBC Introducing stage, and that's from like literally you just put your song there and someone listens to it. Every track gets listened to.
Yeah, we've actually got I'll move on to Keely in a second. We've actually got Kitty speaking on a panel later. She's BBC Intro Norfolk, so definitely come back for that panel. Bit of networking to be done there. I believe Ange is actually speaking on the final panel, and she's BBC Intro Suffolk, so you've got the whole region tied up there. So so Keely, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with George. I think starting at home and not underestimating the power of relating to PR, the power in the smaller blogs, the tastemakers, the people who might not have thousands of people reading their blog, but they're really passionate about discovering new music, and they're going to love the fact that in a few maybe months' time or years' time, when you've done this, that and the other, that they were one of the first people to discover you, and really developing relationships with those people, because they're the people that are going to follow you on social media. They're the people that are going to stream your next track. They're the people who are going to, if you're doing a show nearby, they're the people that are going to come and really, really support you. And if you have 20 or 30 of those smaller blogs doing that, I would much rather that than getting a review on Notion, because it looks really nice and it's great to have, and it's great for your next press release, and it's great to introduce yourself to these other big platforms. And I'm not taking away from that, but I would much rather have 20, 30 platforms all championing me, people that I can chat to, really, really just getting to know them. And I was reading today on the way up here, but according to the Pareto principle, it's 80% of your sales will come from your top 20% of your fans, just 20% of them. And it's about really understanding who they are and really trying to build and cultivate your super fans and developing these really integral relationships with them, because they are the people who are going to support you the most. And having 100 super fans would be incredible, and that's how you create a sustainable career in music, I think.
There's a big difference between followers and fans, and I think understanding that is really important. Not everyone that follows you is gonna buy merch off you or come to a show or whatever, but if you can have 100, 200, 300, 1,000 people who are gonna invest in your project with you as you go, you'll be absolutely fine, and then just keep growing it. And you guys are all going to music college because you want to be in the industry somehow, some way, because you are interested in music. And there will be people who you're on your course with who are amazing musicians, or who get into doing music videos, or who get into PR, and just continue to, I guess, share experiences and share your understanding and your expertise with your friends, because that will be really important. Also, I don't know, I'm almost 30 now, and if I think about when I was leaving uni and I was 18, it was just completely different. And I'm sure maybe one of you guys will be speaking at Wild Paths in 10 years, hopefully. Definitely. And you'll be telling everyone about all this stuff that didn't exist when I'm speaking to you now. So just just like stay in the know, like subscribe to music industry news, like read stuff, understand what's going on, understand how the industry's changing, how it's shifting, how people are listening to music and experiencing music, and just roll with it, I guess, because it's just about staying in the game. If you've got staying power and you continue to recommit yourself to your project, you'll be absolutely fine in the long run. Yeah. You might not make millions of pounds, but
it's about making a sustainable career, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that sort of team building, I'll come to you in a second, so that team building thing's so important. Just as an example, so you've got the Access stage on Saturday at the Millennium Library, and there's a Access student called Imi who runs Midsummer events, which is set up. She runs events at our venue, Voodoo's on Timber Hill. And she's built this little ecosystem. Like all her friends are the artists that play at these events. They're always busy. And she markets and pitches to them, and they'll always turn up to her events. And like Voodoo's is like 130 cap, and she has 130 people she can call on, and her events are looking great, and she's going from strength to strength. So, and that's an example at your own music college. So yeah, I think that's really important. It's like about the level of engagement, not necessarily the number of people that you're reaching. Final word, Céline.
Yeah, so I had a few points on being an independent artist and trying to kind of make your way through it, maybe without financial support from a bigger corporation like a label or something like that. One stems off of what George was saying about friends. Networking is probably, I regret not networking when I was in uni. I know some of my friends were so good at networking. They would show up at every networking event, and they just, every day, they knew 20 more people that they could work with. And they ended up collaborating, sometimes even for free, a lot of the times for free. You just find these amazing producers, for example, that want vocalists to sing on their songs. I know this girl who, she did some networking. She found a producer. They always work together now. They obviously don't pay each other. She went viral on TikTok. She did this, she did that. You know, really amazing things can stem from networking and just knowing a lot of people. That also will help you with fan building, because, you know, the more people you know, the more people will be aware about your music. But yeah, in the industry, networking is super important. So do it as much as you can. Really push yourself. And even if it's out of your comfort zone, try your best to do it a little bit. Maybe go with your friend the first time, the second time, and, you know, really, really network and understand the value in meeting new people that maybe know a bit more about something that you're not really aware of. So that's my first point. The second point is, as a musician, accept the fact that you have to DIY a lot of things. Do a lot of more than just singing and playing an instrument and producing. So you have to be well-versed all round. And then, on what Keely was saying, for PR, sometimes the smaller publications that don't require, like, they don't have a fee. They write about you for free compared to maybe bigger publications or the ones that do charge. Those are the ones that write the nicest things. Those are the ones that you could tell they've connected with the song, they've sat down, closed their eyes, and like really thought about it and thought about the meaning, and are commenting on your song and saying what you want listeners to say about your song. They're really getting it, where I find that bigger publications sometimes can get a bit like surface level with what they write about you. So that's also a good way to get around it without having to spend money.
Amazing. Sorry, I was actually doing a little bit of mad festival admin while I was going. Okay, we're going to have to wrap that up there. So just massive round of applause for the Latch team.
Also, I realised we only had time for one question, but if anyone else has a question, just come and find us afterwards.
And if anyone wants to grab a card, a business card, which I got printed especially for today.
Oh, you've got to come grab one then, otherwise.
Then you can come and grab one of those as well. Yeah.
They're really nice.
They are.
Thank you for having us. And for
Yeah,
being
thanks
so much.
Thanks to
Yes.
Ben and Access and Norwich.
Great
Thank you,
moderating.
Thank you, Norwich.
We'll have a few thank you Norwiches today, hopefully. One more time, so it's latchmedia.co, and if you want to find out about the services they offer, just go online or grab a business card, chat to these guys. That's your first step, networking. So one more round of applause for these guys. House music, please.